The young woman arrived at the naval base early in the morning, the sun just beginning to rise over the horizon. The base was huge, full of tall buildings, metal fences, and the quiet hum of military vehicles preparing for the day. Soldiers and officers were moving about briskly, their uniforms crisp, boots shining, and faces serious. Everyone seemed focused, busy with their own duties, and hardly anyone noticed the new arrival at first. She walked through the main gate confidently, her steps steady and calm. She was not the type to rush or show off, but there was something in her posture, in the way she held herself, that caught the attention of a few passing officers. They glanced at her quickly, some with mild curiosity, but most looked away, thinking she was just another recruit or trainee. What they didn't know was that appearances could be very deceiving. As she made her way deeper into the base, the sounds around her seemed almost normal. The clanking of doors, the distant voices, the occasional shout from a drill instructor. But inside, she was alert, observing every detail carefully. She noticed which doors were locked, which officers moved with confidence, which ones seemed tense or distracted. Even the smallest detail mattered to her. Every movement, every sound could be important later, and she had trained herself to notice them all. She reached the administrative building, where new recruits were usually assigned. The building was filled with paperwork, maps, and charts. Officers were moving around, giving orders, checking documents, and making notes on clipboards. Some of the recruits were nervously sitting on benches, adjusting their uniforms, whispering to one another. She didn't sit down or mingle with them. Instead, she walked calmly to the front desk, introduced herself politely, and asked for instructions. Her voice was soft but confident, and there was a calm authority behind it that made even the busy officers pause for a moment. While she waited to be assigned, she took the time to observe everyone in the room. She noticed how some officers were overly formal, while others were relaxed but sharp. She noticed patterns in their movements, how they reacted under stress, how quickly they made decisions. It was fascinating to her, because in her world, observing people was as important as completing missions. She wasn't here just to blend in. She was here to understand, to learn, and to prepare for what might come next. As she stood quietly, a few of the other recruits started whispering about her. Some were curious, some skeptical. They wondered who she was, why she seemed so calm, and why she carried herself differently than everyone else. There was a subtle confidence in her, not the kind that shouts for attention, but the kind that makes people quietly notice and respect her presence. She ignored the whispers because she knew that attention, whether good or bad, could be a distraction. Her focus was on the bigger picture. After a few minutes, an officer finally approached her and asked her to follow him. She nodded and walked alongside him without hesitation. As they walked, she noticed the layout of the base, the security cameras, the paths people took regularly, and the areas where no one seemed to go. All of this information, small as it seemed, was important to her. Even something as simple as which hallway was usually empty could be useful in the future. They reached a training room where she would meet the commander for an initial briefing. Other recruits were already there, looking nervous and fidgeting in their seats. She walked to the back, chose a spot where she could see everything clearly, and stood silently. She didn't try to impress anyone, didn't smile unnecessarily, didn't speak unless spoken to. But even without saying a word, people sensed there was something different about her. There was a quiet energy, a sense that she was not just another recruit, but someone who carried experience and knowledge that others did not yet understand. As the morning progressed, she continued to observe and take mental notes. She watched how the commander spoke, how officers responded, and how tasks were assigned. She noticed who seemed confident, who hesitated, and who tried to act important without substance. All of these observations were stored in her mind carefully, because understanding people was as critical as understanding any mission. Even though it was her first day, she did not rush or panic. Every step she took, every action she performed was deliberate. She moved with purpose, but her purpose was hidden under a calm, ordinary exterior. To anyone who looked quickly, she seemed like just another recruit. But anyone paying close attention would see the sharpness in her eyes, the careful way she scanned her surroundings, the quiet readiness in her posture. By the time the first briefing was about to start, she had already sized up the room, understood the flow of the base, and observed the key players she might have to work with. She was ready for whatever came next, confident in her abilities and patient in her approach. The base was her stage now, and she was prepared to play her role, carefully, intelligently, and without revealing too much too soon. Her arrival might have seemed ordinary to the casual observer, but in reality, it was the quiet beginning of a story that would surprise everyone, even the most seasoned officers at the base. The calm and collected woman who walked in that morning carried with her secrets, skills, and a mission that would soon turn heads and leave her presence impossible to ignore. The morning briefing room was buzzing with activity when she entered. The room was large, filled with rows of seats, desks, and a few whiteboards covered in maps, codes, and mission plans. Officers and recruits were chatting quietly, some flipping through documents, others whispering in small groups. She walked in confidently, carrying only a small folder, her expression calm and unreadable. There was no rush in her steps, no nervous energy. She moved as if she belonged there, though most of the room had yet to notice her presence. A senior Navy commando, tall and seasoned, stood at the front of the room. He was well known among the recruits for his dry sense of humor and his tendency to tease anyone new. Today, he was in high spirits, joking with the group, making lighthearted comments about the latest drills, and pointing out minor mistakes the recruits had made in training exercises. His voice carried across the room, confident and commanding, and most of the recruits laughed or smiled nervously, hoping to earn his approval. As he scanned the room, his eyes landed on her. She was standing quietly at the back, observing everything. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, with a playful smirk, he called out, "So, what's your rank? Recruit? Or should I guess?" His tone was teasing, light, meant as a joke. The room chuckled, expecting her to answer humbly or nervously, the way most new recruits did. After all, she looked young, and no one expected anything extraordinary from her. She turned her head slightly, her eyes calm but focused, and she replied in a steady, clear voice. But instead of stating a conventional rank like lieutenant or ensign, she spoke a sequence of numbers and letters, a secret code that only elite operatives knew. The room immediately fell silent. Some recruits blinked, unsure of what they had just heard, thinking perhaps she was joking. But the commando who had asked the question froze mid-smile. His expression changed from playful to confused, and a flicker of unease crossed his face. The captain, who had been sitting in the back observing the briefing, stiffened. The code she spoke was not something any ordinary recruit would know. It was a highly classified identifier, used only by top-tier operatives in covert operations. Hearing it meant that she was not just another recruit. She was someone far more experienced and dangerous than anyone in the room had imagined. The captain's face turned pale, a stark contrast to the cheerful energy of the room just moments ago. The commando, trying to regain his composure, cleared his throat. Interesting choice of words," he said, attempting to sound casual. But the tension was noticeable. Even the other officers in the room started to whisper quietly, exchanging glances. Something about her presence had shifted the energy in the room. The easy laughter and joking were gone, replaced by a quiet, cautious curiosity. She remained calm, her voice steady, her eyes scanning the room as if nothing had happened. But inside, she was carefully measuring reactions. She observed the subtle changes in body language, the captain leaning forward slightly, the commando's hands tightening around his notes, the recruits fidgeting nervously. She had learned long ago that people often reveal more through their reactions than through their words. Every glance, every twitch, every pause was information she could use. The room slowly began to realize that she was not just playing along with the humor. This was not a prank or a joke. The code she had spoken carried meaning, authority, and recognition that only those in the highest levels of covert operations would understand. The commando who had been joking now felt a cold awareness. He realized that his attempt at humor had exposed him to someone far above his level of clearance. The joke had backfired, though he would never admit it out loud. The captain, still visibly shaken, whispered a quick order to one of his aides. The aide nodded and left the room quietly, no one paying attention, but the action spoke volumes. Verification of her credentials was being requested immediately. It was a subtle but urgent move, a recognition that this recruit was not ordinary, and her presence might change the course of upcoming operations. Meanwhile, she waited patiently, maintaining her calm exterior. She did not smile or react to the whispers, did not try to explain herself. She knew that, in situations like this, revealing too much too soon could be dangerous. Mystery and restraint were often as powerful as action. She had learned to let others reveal themselves, to observe without being observed too closely. As the minutes passed, the commando who had asked the question tried to regain his composure, attempting to redirect the briefing back to the agenda. But it was clear that the focus of the room had shifted. Everyone was now aware, even if only subconsciously, that this recruit was different. The casual atmosphere of jokes and small talk had vanished, replaced with attention, caution, and silent curiosity. The young woman remained poised and ready, fully aware of the effect she had created. She did not need to assert her authority verbally. Her calm confidence and the simple act of speaking the code had already done that. She was quietly establishing her presence, letting the room understand that underestimation would be a mistake. By the end of the briefing, the captain had received confirmation from his aide. The young woman was indeed a top-tier operative, trained in secret missions, intelligence, and advanced combat. The commando who had made the joke now understood the magnitude of his misstep. And the rest of the room, still unaware of the full extent of her skills, would soon learn that she was someone not to be underestimated. Her simple response, intended to reveal just enough, had changed the dynamics of the room completely. From that moment, she was no longer just a recruit. She was a force to be recognized, a presence that commanded attention without saying a word. And everyone in that room, even the captain, would have to adjust their perception of her moving forward. The moment she spoke the secret code, the entire room went silent. The commando who had been joking moments earlier froze. His smirk wiped off his face. His eyes widened slightly, and a flicker of unease passed over him. What had been intended as a light-hearted question had unexpectedly turned into a revelation. A moment that changed the energy in the room entirely. Recruits who had been whispering and laughing nervously now sat up straight, their curiosity piqued. Some glanced at one another, unsure if they had heard correctly, while others stared at her in quiet astonishment. The captain, seated at the back, had been observing everything with a careful, trained eye. When the code was spoken, he stiffened. His face, once calm and composed, turned an unmistakable shade of white. It was a reaction that didn't go unnoticed by those who were watching closely. In military circles, color changes in a person's face often reveal truth, fear, shock, recognition. In this case, the captain's reaction was all three. The code she had spoken was not something just anyone could know. It was a high-level identifier, reserved only for elite operatives in highly sensitive programs. She stood quietly, her expression composed, eyes scanning the room as if nothing had happened. But inside, she was fully aware of the effect she had created. Every subtle shift in posture, every sharp intake of breath, every nervous glance was noticed and filed away. She had learned long ago that silence could be more powerful than speech, and observation more powerful than action. The room's reaction told her everything she needed to know about their awareness, their knowledge, and their readiness. The commando at the front tried to cover his surprise with a casual cough. "Interesting choice of words," he said, attempting to maintain his composure. But it was clear he was shaken. The joke that had seemed harmless only moments before had completely backfired. For the first time, he realized that the young recruit he had casually teased was not ordinary. She was something far more formidable than anyone in the room had imagined. The other officers began to exchange quiet whispers. Their eyes darted between her and the captain, sensing a shift in the room's atmosphere. Something significant had occurred, something beyond the ordinary scope of the briefing. Even the recruits, who had initially seen her as just another newcomer, began to sense that she carried experience and knowledge that far exceeded her apparent age and position. The captain, still visibly pale, motioned discreetly to an aide seated nearby. The aide understood immediately and began typing rapidly on a secured tablet. Within moments, verification of her identity was underway. In the world of military operations, especially covert ones, confirmation of credentials was not just protocol, it was a necessity. The captain needed to know with certainty who this person was and whether she could be trusted with the information and responsibilities the base carried. Meanwhile, she remained poised, maintaining the calm exterior that had become her signature. She did not rush to explain herself, nor did she react to the whispers and stares around her. She understood the power of controlled revelation. By speaking just the code, she had done enough to communicate her status without compromising any operational secrets. The room now understood that she was someone not to be underestimated, yet they knew almost nothing about her mission, her abilities, or the depth of her experience. The tension in the room was palpable. Every officer, every recruit, even the commando who had asked the joke question, was now aware that this was no ordinary briefing. Something significant had just occurred, something that demanded respect and caution. The atmosphere had shifted from casual banter to quiet tension, with all eyes subtly acknowledging her presence. She had become the center of attention, not by force or arrogance, but through calm confidence and the careful use of information. She had expected this reaction, of course. Her training had prepared her for situations where perception and timing were everything. In her line of work, a single misstep could compromise an entire operation. But by speaking the code at that precise moment, she had tested the room, gauged their reactions, and established her authority. It was a calculated move, subtle but effective, that instantly changed the dynamics around her. The aide returned briefly with a confirmation of her credentials. The captain nodded subtly, still processing the implications. Her presence here was no longer a simple addition to the team, it was a potential game-changer. She carried skills, knowledge, and authority that could influence the success of missions far beyond the scope of a single briefing. Even the commando who had tried to make a joke understood now that he was in the presence of someone whose capabilities he could not lightly challenge. Despite the sudden shift, she maintained her calm demeanor, giving no outward sign of pride or satisfaction. This was deliberate. Bravado was unnecessary and dangerous. Confidence, composed observation, and quiet authority were far more effective in commanding respect and attention. Everyone in the room sensed this, the recruits, the officers, even the captain, and the unspoken message was clear. Underestimate her at your own risk. By the time the briefing resumed, the room had adjusted to her presence. But the memory of her speaking the code lingered, an invisible mark that had subtly yet irreversibly changed how everyone perceived her. She was no longer just a new recruit. She was someone whose identity, skills, and purpose demanded careful attention and respect. And though few in the room fully understood the extent of her abilities, everyone knew, deep down, that they were in the presence of a professional who could alter the course of events with a single action. Her calm, calculated response had achieved its purpose. She had revealed just enough to establish her authority, while maintaining the secrecy and mystery that were essential to her role. In that moment, the room had shifted from a place of routine, predictable hierarchy to one of heightened awareness, where everyone now understood that she was someone to be watched, respected, and, above all, not underestimated. The moment the secret code left her lips, a wave of tension swept across the briefing room. She remained calm and composed, but the reactions of those around her spoke volumes. The commando who had asked the joke froze, caught off guard by the seriousness of her response. For a moment, he looked as if he wanted the floor to swallow him up. The room, once filled with casual chatter and light laughter, now felt heavy with unspoken recognition and unease. The captain, who had been observing from the back, was the first to react in a way that could not be ignored. His face turned pale, almost ghostly, and his usual confident posture became rigid. The color drained from his face in seconds, leaving him looking stunned and unsettled. Those watching closely could see his fingers tighten around the armrest of his chair, his jaw clenching slightly. It was clear that the words she had spoken carried more meaning than anyone else in the room could comprehend at that moment. She noticed the captain's reaction, of course, but she didn't show any sign of satisfaction or fear. She had been trained to maintain her composure at all times, no matter the situation. Inside, she catalogued every subtle change in expression, every shift in posture, and every flicker of emotion. In her line of work, these observations were as valuable as any weapon. A single glance could reveal intentions, secrets, and priorities. The code she had spoken was not just a random series of letters and numbers. It was a highly classified identifier, recognized only by elite members of covert military operations. Anyone who heard it and understood its significance immediately knew that the person speaking it was trained, experienced, and operating at a level far beyond ordinary recruits or officers. The captain's reaction confirmed what she already suspected. She had successfully revealed her identity to the right people, without saying more than necessary. Around the room, other officers and recruits began to sense the shift in atmosphere. Whispered conversations started, though no one dared speak loudly. Their eyes darted between her and the captain, trying to gauge the situation. Some recruits leaned toward their neighbors, quietly asking if they had heard correctly, while others simply stared, stunned by the sudden weight of the moment. Even the commando who had asked the joke could not hide his unease. He realized that the playful question had inadvertently revealed more than he had intended. The captain, recovering slightly from his initial shock, signaled to a nearby aide. The aide immediately understood the gravity of the situation and began working discreetly to verify her credentials. In operations like these, verification was not just protocol, it was essential. The captain needed to know that she was who she claimed to be and that her presence on the base was authorized. Every second of delay could be critical, and the aide worked quickly, typing rapidly on a secure device while remaining almost invisible to the rest of the room. Meanwhile, she remained composed. She did not speak again, did not offer any additional explanation, and did not react to the whispers and curious glances. She knew that revealing too much too soon could compromise her mission or her safety. The moment of silence she maintained was deliberate. It was a test, a way to measure the reactions of those around her and to establish her authority without a word of boastfulness. The tension in the room was palpable. The captain's face, still pale, spoke of the recognition and respect that had just been established. He knew immediately that she was no ordinary recruit. She was a highly trained operative whose presence could significantly impact operations. Her calm confidence and the simple act of speaking the code had communicated more than hours of introductions or explanations ever could. Some of the officers began to shift their attention, trying to maintain professionalism while also processing what they had just witnessed. They realized that they were in the presence of someone extraordinary. The recruits, on the other hand, could only sense that something unusual had happened. They had not been trained to recognize secret codes or elite operatives, but they could see the reactions of the adults around them and understood, in a vague but undeniable way, that she was important and different. The commando who had asked the joke now quietly avoided eye contact, recognizing that he had underestimated her. The captain's aide returned with confirmation of her identity, though he handed the information discreetly, so only the captain could see. The captain scanned the details quickly, absorbing the verification that this recruit was indeed a top-level operative. His eyes, still wide with surprise, reflected a mixture of admiration, concern, and urgency. Despite the intensity of the moment, she remained calm. Her posture, her steady breathing, and her quiet observation conveyed an unspoken message. She was in control, and she knew her abilities and the authority they carried. The room had already been transformed by her presence. The previous casual atmosphere was gone, replaced by a quiet acknowledgement that she was someone who commanded attention and respect, even without overtly asserting it. By the end of the exchange, the captain had regained some composure, but the memory of her words lingered. He knew that her presence on the base was no ordinary occurrence. Her skills, experience, and the authority implied by the code she had spoken made her a figure that would demand consideration in every future operation. Everyone in the room, from the seasoned officers to the newest recruits, had been subtly reminded that underestimating her would be a serious mistake. The moment was brief but profound. In a matter of seconds, she had shifted the balance of perception in the room, moving from a newcomer to a recognized, highly skilled operative. Her calm confidence and precise words had changed how everyone saw her, establishing her presence as someone extraordinary. And while the captain's face remained pale, it was not fear alone. It was recognition of the fact that a rare and exceptional talent had arrived at the base, someone who could alter the course of missions and influence outcomes with skill, precision, and authority. After the tense moment in the briefing room, the captain knew he needed to act quickly but discreetly. The young woman had spoken a highly classified code, revealing that she was far more than an ordinary recruit. Her presence alone had already shifted the energy in the room, but the captain had to confirm her identity fully before anything else could happen. This was not just a matter of protocol, it was about security, trust, and the safety of the base. He subtly motioned to his aide, who immediately understood the urgency. Without drawing attention, the aide moved to a secure terminal and began cross-referencing her information with top-secret databases. The process was swift but thorough, verifying everything from her training records to operational assignments. Within minutes, confirmation began to arrive. She was indeed a highly trained operative, part of a covert program reserved for only the most skilled personnel. Her expertise spanned advanced combat, intelligence gathering, cyber operations, and strategic missions that few could even comprehend. Meanwhile, the young woman remained perfectly composed. She did not fidget, speak, or make unnecessary movements. Her calm demeanor conveyed confidence and authority without needing to say a word. She understood that the captain and his aide were verifying her credentials, and she allowed them the time to do so. Patience and restraint were as much a part of her skill set as marksmanship or tactical planning. By staying calm, she reinforced the idea that she was in complete control, even in a situation where others were beginning to realize just how powerful she truly was. The captain's face, still pale from the earlier shock, showed a mixture of astonishment and admiration as the verification came through. Each confirmed detail reinforced the reality of who she was, an elite operative whose presence could dramatically alter the course of missions. He realized that this recruit was no ordinary addition to the team. She was a strategic advantage, someone capable of handling operations that would normally require an entire squad. The magnitude of her abilities began to sink in, and with it, the urgency to integrate her into the right operations quickly. Around the room, other officers and recruits were beginning to sense the shift, even if they did not yet understand its full implications. Some officers whispered quietly to one another, sharing their curiosity and surprise. The recruits, still adjusting to the revelation, watched her with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. It was clear to everyone that this woman was not only extraordinary but also someone whose authority and experience demanded respect. The joke that had once seemed harmless was now a distant memory, replaced by the realization that she commanded a presence far beyond her years and appearance. As the verification process concluded, the captain quietly addressed the room, though his words were carefully chosen. He acknowledged her credentials to a few trusted officers without revealing classified details to the entire group. This discretion was important. The mission she was involved with required secrecy, and even small hints of her full capabilities could compromise operational security. The officers who learned the truth were careful to adjust their behavior, recognizing that they were now dealing with someone of exceptional skill and authority. The young woman, noticing the subtle changes in attention and behavior around her, continued to observe silently. She had a unique ability to read people and situations, quickly assessing who could be trusted and who might need guidance. Her patience and calm allowed her to gather information about the room, the personnel, and the dynamics at play without revealing anything about her own plans or capabilities. By doing so, she maintained control over the narrative, ensuring that she remained a step ahead in every interaction. With her identity fully confirmed, the captain began to reconsider how she would fit into upcoming operations. Her presence could not be treated lightly. She was capable of tasks that required precision, discretion, and rapid decision-making. It was clear that integrating her effectively would be critical to the success of future missions. The officers who had previously underestimated her now understood that she was not only capable but potentially indispensable. Despite the weight of the situation, she continued to project a sense of calm authority. Her composure had a subtle effect on those around her, inspiring confidence among the officers while maintaining a sense of respect and caution. This balance was essential. She could assert authority without appearing threatening, guiding others through her actions rather than words. It was a skill she had honed through years of specialized training, and it allowed her to command attention effortlessly. By the end of the verification, it was clear to everyone that she was no ordinary recruit. The captain, still absorbing the implications of her presence, knew that missions and strategies would need to be adjusted to account for her abilities. Officers and recruits alike had begun to recognize her as someone extraordinary, someone whose skills and judgment could turn the tide in high-stakes situations. The room had transformed from a place of routine briefings into a space charged with anticipation, curiosity, and respect for the young woman who had quietly demonstrated her authority. In that moment, she had achieved something remarkable without firing a weapon or issuing a command. Through a combination of calm observation, strategic revelation, and unshakable composure, she had established herself as a figure whose presence demanded recognition. The captain and his aides had verified her identity, confirming what she had already demonstrated. She was a top-level operative, a force to be reckoned with, and a critical asset to the base. Her calm confidence and skillful use of information had shifted perceptions and set the stage for the next phase of operations. The officers who had once dismissed her now understood that they were in the presence of someone exceptional. And for her, the verification was just another step in the process. Another opportunity to prepare, observe, and position herself for the missions ahead. After the verification of her credentials, the atmosphere in the briefing room had completely shifted. The young woman, once seen as just another recruit, was now recognized as an elite operative. Her calm demeanor and the secret code she had spoken had transformed how everyone perceived her. Officers who had initially underestimated her now regarded her with a mixture of respect, caution, and curiosity. The shift was subtle but unmistakable. She was no longer a newcomer. She was a force whose presence demanded attention. The first officer to approach her was one who had been quietly observing her from the start. He was experienced, seasoned, and used to being in charge, yet there was an undeniable sense of admiration in his eyes. "I didn't expect that," he admitted quietly, speaking in a tone meant only for her. "I thought you were just another recruit." She smiled faintly, not arrogantly, but in a way that acknowledged the truth without boasting. Her calm response spoke volumes. She had earned his respect without a single raised voice or aggressive action. Others began to follow, drawn by curiosity and the need to understand the woman who had so effortlessly shifted the room's dynamics. They asked questions not about her skills, she revealed very little, but about her perspective. She listened carefully to their observations, nodding thoughtfully, and offered subtle advice when necessary. Even in these small exchanges, her authority was clear. She didn't command loudly or force anyone to follow. Instead, she guided through presence, insight, and quiet confidence. The recruits, previously whispering and speculating about her, were now watching closely. Some were inspired, others intimidated. They saw that her calm and composed behavior had earned her the respect of experienced officers. This realization was a lesson in itself. Actions, confidence, and precision could achieve far more than words alone. Those who had doubted her were now reevaluating everything they thought they knew about the people in the room. The captain, still pale but regaining composure, observed the interactions silently. He understood that this young woman was not only skilled but also intelligent in her approach to human dynamics. She had a way of asserting influence without overt authority, allowing people to follow her willingly while remaining impressed by her expertise. This was a rare talent, one that few possessed. It was clear that she could not only contribute to missions but also elevate the effectiveness of the entire team simply through her presence. Over the next few days, she began participating in training exercises with the officers and recruits. What set her apart was not just her physical skills. Though those were impressive, but her strategic thinking and calm execution under pressure. During drills, she observed first, taking in the layout, the personnel, and the flow of activity before making a move. When she did act, her decisions were precise, deliberate, and effective. Fellow officers began to notice that following her suggestions often led to smoother operations and better results. Slowly, trust in her abilities began to grow organically. Even in casual interactions, she demonstrated leadership. She helped others understand subtle details they might have missed, pointing out potential mistakes without condescension. Her approach was methodical and patient, building confidence among those who had initially doubted her. Officers who had once questioned her presence now found themselves seeking her input, recognizing that her perspective added value to every decision. The respect she earned was not demanded but naturally given, a testament to her skill, intelligence, and poise. Meanwhile, she continued to observe the team dynamics quietly. She understood that trust and respect were earned over time, and she was patient. By paying attention to individual personalities, strengths, and weaknesses, she could anticipate reactions, mediate conflicts subtly, and ensure that the team functioned more effectively as a unit. Her presence had a stabilizing effect. Officers who were initially competitive or dismissive found themselves aligning with her guidance without even realizing it. The captain began to involve her in higher-level discussions, subtly testing how she would handle sensitive information. Each time, she responded with discretion and insight, further proving her value. Her calm confidence inspired others to take her seriously, and slowly, a culture of respect developed around her. This shift was not immediate, but it was undeniable. She had moved from being a new recruit to an integral, trusted presence within the team. As she continued to earn respect, she also started preparing for more significant responsibilities. The first opportunity came when the captain briefed her on a critical mission requiring careful planning, precision, and discretion. The mission stakes were high, and success depended on skillful execution. The captain, now fully aware of her capabilities, trusted her judgment completely. Her role would be pivotal, and she accepted it without hesitation. Her preparation was meticulous. She studied every detail, anticipated potential problems, and formulated strategies that would ensure success. By the end of this period, it was clear to everyone that she had transformed the dynamics of the team. The officers and recruits who had once overlooked her were now aligned with her, respecting her abilities and anticipating her guidance. The captain, though still cautious, recognized that she was a rare talent whose skills and presence could tip the balance in even the most challenging missions. She had earned her place, not through force or ego, but through patience, observation, skill, and the quiet authority of someone who knew exactly what she was capable of achieving. Her journey from underestimated recruit to respected operative demonstrated the power of composure, intelligence, and strategic action. She had proven that true leadership was earned through skill, insight, and the ability to inspire confidence in others, not through words alone. And with her first major mission approaching, the stage was set for her to demonstrate just how extraordinary she truly was. The briefing room was quiet now, charged with a sense of anticipation. The captain had just finished outlining a highly sensitive mission, one that required absolute precision, stealth, and teamwork. Every officer present understood the stakes. Failure was not an option. Lives, strategy, and the success of the base itself depended on the flawless execution of this operation. And at the center of it all was the young woman, the recruit who had already proven herself extraordinary. The mission involved infiltrating a location deep behind enemy lines, gathering intelligence, and ensuring that critical information reached the right hands. There was no margin for error, and the team needed someone with exceptional skill, calm judgment, and the ability to adapt to unpredictable situations. The captain's decision was clear. She was the ideal operative for this task. Her prior actions had shown that she could handle stress with composure, think strategically, and earn the trust of those around her. There was no question, she would lead key aspects of the mission. As she listened to the details, she absorbed every piece of information carefully. Maps, coordinates, security layouts, guard schedules, and contingency plans were all presented. While others were taking frantic notes, She maintained a calm focus, visualizing the mission in her mind. She anticipated every obstacle, calculated possible risks, and devised multiple solutions for each scenario. Her mind worked like a machine, processing data quickly yet methodically, ensuring that nothing was overlooked. The officers around her were watching closely, some with awe, others with a mixture of respect and anxiety. They had seen her earn their trust over the past few days, but now they were witnessing the full scope of her capabilities. She didn't speak unnecessarily, but when she did, her words were concise, precise, and immediately actionable. Suggestions she offered were clear and practical, demonstrating her deep understanding of operational strategy. The captain, observing her closely, felt a surge of confidence. He knew that with her leading key elements, the chances of success had increased dramatically. Preparation for the mission began immediately. The young woman coordinated with the team, assigning roles based on each member's strengths, while ensuring that everyone was aware of contingencies. She walked them through the plan step by step, emphasizing critical points without overwhelming them with unnecessary detail. Her calm authority reassured the team, instilling confidence in officers who were usually skeptical of newcomers. Even the most experienced members began to appreciate her insight, realizing that her guidance could make the difference between success and failure. When the time came to execute the mission, the team moved with precision under her guidance. Every action had been anticipated, every decision pre-planned, yet she remained flexible, ready to adapt if unexpected challenges arose. The journey to the target location was tense. Each step demanded alertness and careful movement. The young woman led by example, moving quietly, observing the surroundings, and ensuring that no one took unnecessary risks. Her training, experience, and calm demeanor set the pace for the team, allowing them to function efficiently despite the high stakes. Upon reaching the target area, they encountered unexpected obstacles. Security measures were more sophisticated than anticipated, and patrol patterns had shifted. While others might have panicked, she remained composed. Analyzing the situation quickly, she formulated a new plan, directing the team with precise instructions to navigate around the heightened security. Her ability to remain calm under pressure, think critically, and adjust instantly proved invaluable. Every decision she made was deliberate, minimizing risk while maximizing the likelihood of success. As they moved deeper into the mission, the tension increased. Every sound, shadow, and movement became significant. She remained focused, her senses heightened, aware of everything in the environment. She noticed patterns that others missed, predicted movements of guards, and silently adjusted their path to avoid detection. The team followed her lead, trusting her judgment completely. Her calm presence became a stabilizing force, allowing others to perform at their best even under extreme pressure. Once the team reached the critical objective, she executed the final phase of the mission with precision. Gathering the intelligence required careful observation and swift, accurate action. She completed the task flawlessly, ensuring that all sensitive information was collected without alerting the enemy. The team exfiltrated the area efficiently, guided every step of the way by her calm command and strategic insight. By the time they returned to base, the mission had been accomplished without a single error, and the entire operation was deemed a complete success. The captain, witnessing the operation from a safe distance, felt a mixture of relief and admiration. He had known of her abilities, but seeing her in action on a real mission validated everything he had suspected. She had not only performed exceptionally under pressure but had also elevated the performance of the entire team. Officers who had once doubted her were now fully aware of her capabilities, recognizing that she was not only skilled but also a natural leader. The young woman, though successful, remained composed and modest. She did not boast or seek recognition. Her focus was already on the next step, analyzing what had gone well and what could be improved for future operations. Her calm confidence and professionalism reinforced her growing reputation among the team and the higher command. She had proven that her skill was not just theoretical but practical, capable of producing results in the most challenging situations. By the end of the mission, the impact of her actions was clear. She had earned the complete trust and respect of the captain, the officers, and her fellow operatives. She had demonstrated that true skill combines preparation, calm judgment, adaptability, and leadership. The operation had succeeded because of her presence and guidance, solidifying her status as a critical asset to the base and the team. The mission was not just a test of her skills. It was a declaration of her capability and potential. She had proven that she could handle high-stakes situations with precision, inspire confidence in her team, and achieve results that others might consider impossible. Her calm demeanor, intelligence, and exceptional abilities had once again changed how she was perceived, transforming her from a promising recruit to a trusted operative whose influence and skill would shape the success of future missions. The mission had ended, and the team returned to base under a quiet night sky, the cool air carrying a sense of relief and accomplishment. The young woman walked among her fellow operatives, calm as ever, yet inside, she felt the familiar mixture of satisfaction and readiness. Every detail of the mission had been executed precisely, and every risk had been managed. The team had succeeded because of her leadership, her strategic thinking, and her ability to remain composed under pressure. As they entered the briefing room back at the base, the atmosphere was completely different from when she had first arrived days earlier. Officers who had once been skeptical or dismissive now looked at her with genuine respect. Some nodded quietly in acknowledgement, while others approached to offer congratulations or to quietly ask for insight on her methods. Even the recruits, who had initially been intimidated by her presence, were inspired. They had witnessed how calm, skillful, and confident action could command authority and achieve results. The captain, still processing the events of the mission, stood at the front of the room. His face had regained some color, but his eyes were wide with admiration. He knew that she had not only completed the mission flawlessly but had also elevated the performance of everyone involved. The careful planning, the precision execution, and the seamless adaptability she had demonstrated were qualities that set her apart from almost anyone else in the unit. The captain realized that her value went beyond skill. She had the ability to inspire, guide, and influence the team in ways that were both subtle and profound. He finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying weight. This operation succeeded because of clear leadership and exceptional skill. The person at the center of this success has earned my highest respect. His eyes met hers, and for the first time in public, he acknowledged her extraordinary abilities directly. The room fell silent as everyone understood that this recognition was not casual praise. It was an official acknowledgement of her capability, her composure, and her leadership. The young woman did not smile excessively or boast. Her calm presence spoke for itself. She had learned that actions, rather than words, communicated the most. She allowed the officers and team members to feel the impact of her performance, and her quiet confidence reinforced the respect they already had for her. She had proven that leadership and skill were not about dominance or arrogance, but about precision, foresight, and the ability to guide others effectively under pressure. As the team debriefed, she listened carefully to feedback, answered questions with clarity and precision, and offered insights that were both practical and strategic. She highlighted moments where the team had excelled and subtly pointed out areas for improvement, ensuring that the mission's lessons would strengthen future operations. Her ability to communicate effectively, while maintaining authority, further solidified the team's trust in her judgment. Even officers who had initially doubted her found themselves following her guidance without question, realizing that her methods consistently produced results. The captain continued to watch her quietly, noting how naturally she handled the debrief. He saw that her calm demeanor was not just a mask. It was the foundation of her effectiveness. She did not panic under pressure, did not allow emotions to cloud her judgment, and always maintained clarity in thought and action. These qualities were rare, even among the most seasoned operatives, and they had now been proven in a real-world mission. The captain knew that having her as part of the team was not just an advantage. It was a critical asset. Word of her success began to spread throughout the base. Officers shared the story of the mission and her key role in it with others, careful to maintain security but ensuring that her contributions were acknowledged. Even those who had not been present on the mission recognized the extraordinary impact she had made. The respect she earned was organic, growing from the undeniable results of her actions and the confidence she inspired in others. As the hours passed, the young woman remained calm, yet a subtle pride glimmered in her eyes. She knew that the mission's success was a testament to her training, preparation, and the careful observation she had applied from the moment she arrived at the base. Every decision, every calculated action, had contributed to the flawless execution of the operation. She understood that true recognition came not from words but from demonstrated ability, and she had proven herself fully. The captain finally approached her privately. His expression was serious but respectful. "I have to admit, when you first arrived, I had no idea what we were dealing with," he said. "Now, it's clear that you are not just a recruit, but someone capable of shaping the outcome of even the most critical missions. Your skills, composure, and judgment are unmatched." She nodded slightly, acknowledging his words without fanfare. She knew that the mission had spoken louder than any praise could. The team, having witnessed the events and the captain's acknowledgement, began to look at her as more than a colleague. She was now a trusted leader, someone whose presence reassured them and whose guidance they relied upon. The atmosphere in the base had shifted. Where once there was doubt or skepticism, there was now admiration and confidence in her abilities. Her role as a pivotal member of the team was secure, and her reputation as a highly skilled operative was firmly established. By the end of the night, the young woman had not only completed a dangerous and complex mission, but had also solidified her status as someone extraordinary. She had proven that skill, intelligence, and calm under pressure were far more valuable than arrogance or bravado. The captain, the officers, and the entire team now recognized her not just as a recruit or operative, but as a legend in the making. Someone whose presence would continue to influence missions, inspire confidence, and set a standard for excellence. Her journey from a quietly confident newcomer to a respected and essential operative was complete. The mission had been the ultimate test, and she had passed with distinction. The captain, once startled by her unexpected abilities, now saw clearly that she was someone who could lead, execute, and excel in ways few could imagine. Her calm, calculated actions and unwavering composure had left an indelible mark, proving that true skill and leadership are measured not by words, but by results.